Resident Evil is a critically acclaimed series with interesting, somewhat complicated lore and dedicated fans. Dedication, however, has its limits, and they're immediately met just playing the first half hour of one of Resident Evil's biggest failures, Resident Evil 5. Hey, it's Nana Plays Games, aka MPG. Usually, I make it a rule to finish any game I talk about on my channel, but I just couldn't finish RE5. Resident Evil 5 is possibly one of the more unique Resident Evil titles in terms of gameplay and mechanics, and in this case, that's not a good thing, for many reasons. Whether it be the awkward, annoying gimmicks or the controls basically fighting with the player, the game is not a great experience to put it lightly. I'm typically of the opinion that most games released in the last 15 to 20 years don't really need a remake, but after playing this game, let's just say I changed my mind. I used to play this game with my cousin back when we were both kids, and I always thought we were just bad at the game. Newsflash, we were, but the game definitely was too. I have tried to beat this game multiple times. Every time I try, I think there's something wrong with me, or I'm just not understanding the game. I think I feel comfortable saying that that's not the case and I'm just fine letting it go. I feel so bad for anyone who's watching this video. This game is both hard to play and hard to watch, so Godspeed. No transition screen, no fade to black, let's just get right into it. Culturally insensitive representations aside, this game is very difficult to play and find anything good about it. This surprisingly all depends on how you're playing the game, and even then, not really. Let me give you a brief overview. Resident Evil 5 only really operates somewhat tolerably if you're playing with another competent player, and even that's a stretch. The game forces you to have a partner, so you can either suffer through the game with someone or suffer even more while playing with the brain-dead AI partner the game gives you. So if you don't have friends and don't care to play online, which who the hell is playing RE5 online in 2025, it's nothing short of a horrible experience. I played a good portion of the game with my boyfriend, but he got so tilted at how dog-watered the game was that he abandoned me midway. I don't blame him though, because I quit right after. I actually had a lot of fun watching him get angry, and though I sometimes felt annoyed myself, the act of playing a game with someone is always great. To me, even the most infuriating experiences can be entertaining when there's someone else by your side. And I actually don't think RE5 was a bad two-player experience on the surface. It actually had a lot of concepts and features that I found really enjoyable, so I honestly wasn't too upset while playing with him. But don't let that distract from the fact that this game without another competent player is like, I don't know, currently living in the US or something. It sucks. I've tried, and that didn't last very long. It's funny how the scariest part of this game is just trying to enjoy it. The two-player system tried to be Left 4 Dead but without the charm, or convenience, or good gameplay mechanics and controls, or fair loot drops. Having to basically babysit Sheva was not only irritating but often put me in predicaments I didn't want to be in. Having a specific loadout for her so she acts accordingly is basically essential if you want a partner who's actually going to help you out. She doesn't have the worst AI I've ever seen in a game, but there will be some moments where you'll wonder why the game even gave you a partner at all. That's not the half of it though. The controls are unbelievably unintuitive and awful to get used to. Most of the time, when you take a break from a game, it may take you a bit to get used to the control scheme again, but in this case, either don't take a break or quit. Straight up. But again, this really depends on how you play. If you're playing with a keyboard or mouse, the game gives you a crosshair for aiming your guns, making it a lot easier to aim, and it's honestly just easier to move around. Playing with a controller on the other hand, I just gotta say, did this game hate their console players or something? Kinda not a major point, but not everyone can or wants to play on PC, so it shouldn't be how to play on console and or with a controller. Anyway, the laser you get for aiming while playing with controller settings is hard as hell to see at best, so you're constantly wasting ammo, and I'll talk about why ammo is a luxury later. Not being able to properly aim in a game where you'll primarily be using guns is totally insane. It can make shooting smaller or faster moving enemies kind of hell. The controls are basically fighting with the player the whole way throughout. It'll be a miracle if you can move around with little to no difficulty while aiming. Switching out weapons is annoying, as you have to go into a menu where you can't move around at all to change your weapons. If you want to change your weapons seamlessly, you can do so with the D-pad, but the game doesn't tell you that, so unless you stumble upon it accidentally like I did, good luck. And if what you're looking for isn't mapped to the D-pad, you'll have to do a lot of stuff on the fly, which is kinda annoying, but in hindsight, really hilarious. Shooting in this game operates much like other shooters, so this isn't really a problem, and you might be thinking, what about melee weapons? It's Resident Evil, so there's bound to be some, right? Well, that kinda sucks too. Doing melee attacks not only do like minimal damage, but they're also inconvenient to do. Instead of just mapping it to one button, the game requires you to hold the left shoulder button to take out your knife and right trigger to start slashing. You can't exactly move forward or back while using your knife either. You can only turn a simple 360 degrees, so if you need to readjust to get closer to an enemy, you'll have to let go and press shoulder and trigger again. May seem like a non-issue, but if you've played the game at least once, you know how annoying this is. Using melee attacks to kill enemies is not only irritating as all hell, but should only be done as a last resort. If not, you'll be there for a while if you don't straight up die. Having to press down on the left joystick to run gets kind of awkward after a while, and God forbid you have to travel backwards at a fast pace. You can't move backwards all that quickly, so completely turning around is not only faster, but less annoying. It's not great in situations where you're getting swarmed, more on that later though. That's not the most pressing matter at the moment. The game allows players to buy guns from the shop, but you can't buy ammo. Enemies drop ammo, so you might be thinking, that doesn't seem too bad, until you play it. It's like the game very rarely gives you any ammo, and if they do, it's useless handgun bullets. Don't get me wrong, handguns are pretty good for weaker enemies or when it's not a great idea to use anything else, but I never seem to have shotgun or machine gun bullets on hand. I always have to scavenge for them, and it can be unfun to hear that click sound when I'm in the middle of mowing down enemies. I figure, what's the point in giving the player other weapons to use if the ammo you usually receive is for only one type of gun? Remember what I said about aiming in this game? Well, it just makes missing shots that much more painful. So yeah, handguns are better than nothing and beggars can't be choosers, but they do insignificant amounts of damage a lot of the time. There are also finishing moves or follow-up attacks the player can do after stunning an enemy, but this requires getting close to them and is kind of not the best option a lot of the time. Not to mention, it doesn't do as much damage as you think it does, so it's usually just best to keep your distance. Speaking of enemies though, they aren't all that fun to deal with, but then again, the gimmicks that get paired with them aren't either. The quirks in this game kinda suck, and I honestly don't know how it was ever released. I can't imagine none of the playtesters complained. The game often kills you instantly for little to no reason, whether it's avoidable or not. Sometimes you take 5 steps near your destination, you're interrupted by a somewhat confusing cutscene of something happening, you're back to playing, then boom, something immediately explodes in your face. Let me give you an example.
I'll cover you from up there! Give me a hand!
Not gonna lie, after fuming for a bit, I just laughed my ass off because it was genuinely hilarious. This game happens to be the funniest thing ever without even trying, and it's honestly kinda refreshing to just laugh at my own misfortune sometimes. Maybe I should also bring up that cutscenes are super long and can't be skipped, even if you've sat through it 5 times because you died to something dumb. Either way, the game often forces you to play at its pace, often slowing you down or swarming you with bullet sponge enemies when you have no ammo. This is probably one of the worst parts of the game in my opinion. It's very common that the game will throw hordes of enemies your way, and to be honest, I like how almost arcadey it feels. It honestly kinda reminded me of when I used to play Black Ops Zombies with my sister, only less fun. Enemies can be extremely tanky, and in this game, that's not exactly a good thing. RE5 also forces players to be apart sometimes, leading to frustrations when you inevitably get jumped and probably have no ammo. I will admit though, it's kind of funny when one player is fighting for their lives and the other is just taking their sweet time looting around. But a lot of the time, the game will throw either really scary or insta-kill enemies at you, and the safest bet would be to loop around a safe open area like you're in Dead by Daylight or something. Other sections of the game are like really awkward and kind of stupid. Sometimes it's funny enough to be excusable. Look at this stupid ass clip I got. Watch the top screen. It's jarring, but whatever. Not the worst thing ever. Some of the bosses are whatever, but others are really odd. Like, not in a hard way or anything. They're actually fairly easy, but they're just so bizarre and go on for way too long. Like this boss, honestly hilarious, but only because it's really weird and unlike anything I've ever seen before. What I don't typically enjoy in RE5 are the gimmicks or odd objectives that are in certain areas, ones you haven't seen before and probably won't see ever again. Using keys and finding plates are pretty simple, not at all a problem, but having to do these really odd light puzzles that can instantly kill your partner is really funny. Other things like getting your partner to a destination by rotating a wheel might sound boring, but harmless, right? Yeah, harmless.
Yep, this is...
Now, take all the bad things I said about the controls and mechanics and combine them with the thoughtless gimmicks in this game. It makes for a pretty bad experience, but like I said, I was too busy laughing my ass off to be angry. Okay, now time for the petty stuff that doesn't matter, some good and some bad. I love Sheva's office siren skin. Chris's skins look like hot ass, but I expected that. This game has like the piss filter, but if the filter existed for this unnamed African country instead of Mexico. I actually really like the location though. I often found myself thinking the environment was kind of pretty and distinct compared to other RE games. Wish they did a little more to make it more unique from chapter to chapter though, that'd be fun. The game for its time looks pretty gorgeous. Some of these scenes are downright beautiful and made me feel like I was watching an actual movie. I don't have much to say about the story, but the voice acting and dialogue is a little awkward at times. Stupid cutscenes that you think are gameplay related just aren't. It wastes a lot of time, but again, it's so goofy I can't view it as a genuine flaw. This game is so dumb, I can see how people can laugh at it and not take it seriously. I would have enjoyed the overall experience so much more if the game felt more balanced and better to control. I've tried countless times to enjoy this game, and it's like I can tolerate it up to a certain point. I didn't really enjoy it, that just wasn't my experience, but I'm curious. If you played it recently and enjoyed it, why did you? I'd love to hear your feedback. This is one of the times where I feel like other people's opinions are fairly mixed on a game I'm talking about, so make sure to comment. Like and subscribe if you feel compelled to as well. This is MPG, I'll catch you later. Peace!